Umpire Magazine, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 22 out of 32, I was joined by Green Bay Packers fan Adam Martin from the Franchise Tag podcast as we look ahead to the upcoming season. Adam discusses when he thinks Micah Parsons will return from injury.
At the same time, there's no point rushing him.
I ask Adam whether there's any pressure on head coach Matt LaFleur. Got a lot of stick following the end of the season, and much more as Adam predicts the team's overall record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, and we are here for Team Season Preview 22 out of 32. We are almost there. We are now just 10, 11 teams away from once again completing this challenge of every year doing a season preview for every team with at least one fan of each team. Now, the team in focus today, as you can see from the title, is the Green Bay Packers, and we have a returning guest. He came on for last year's season preview. Back on the show today, it's the Franchise Tag podcast, Adam Martin. Adam, great to have you on.
Hi, yeah, it's good to be here. Always fun to come in and preview the Packers, and hopefully we have another good season. But yeah, it's all good fun, and we all still think you're mental for doing this every year, but fair enough.
Yeah, it is. It does take a lot of my time up. There's a month in my life where it's constantly. I mean, for example, this is our second recording of tonight. 3 teams tomorrow we're recording. We are on the final stretch now, but there's been some issues with scheduling with some fans. There's been issues with sound on one of the episodes we did. My Word is currently not working on my laptop, so I have to resort with my phone Word, and that keeps crashing. So yeah, there's been some problems, which you probably haven't seen that much if you have listened to all the shows because they've been edited out. But there have been some problems technically. But no, I'm glad we're once again and getting towards the end of it, and everyone still wants to come on. You never know; these guests might not want to return. So it's good to have you back on.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here, and like I say, always good to go through the Packers and pre-season, and hope that good times come by the time we reach February. So yeah.
Well, let's head into the ins and outs of the Packers off-season. So the team traded for the likes of Zaire Franklin, did trade away the likes of Rashawn Gary to the Cowboys and Dontavion Wicks to the Eagles. You also added in free agency the likes of Sky Moore, Javon Hargrave, Tyrell Taylor, Lenny Krieg, Caden Prather, and Drew Biber. In free agency, you re-signed the likes of Chris Brooks, Brenton Cox, Jonathan Ford, Donovan Jennings, Bo Melton, Nick Neiman, Christian Welch, and Josh Weil. Re-signed the likes of Christian Watson, Isaiah McDuffie, Devontae Wyatt, and Sean Ryan. And you let go the likes of Elkton Jenkins. I always hate saying that name. Nate Hobbs, Brandon McManus, also Dante Barnett, and Brendan Rice. And in the draft, you traded away your first-round pick to the Cowboys in exchange to get, of course, Micah Parsons last year. So then in the second round, you took Brandon Cisse. In the third round, you took Chris McLachlan. Fourth round, you took Danny Dennis Sutton. In the fifth round, you took Jager Burton. And then in the sixth round, because you traded away your seventh round pick, your final 2 picks were Damani Jackson and Trey Smack. What a cool name that is. Adam, overall for you, your take on the team's off-season?
I think overall it feels like the roster is in a position where if the whole of that sort of like first team, as you would, the starting guys, you would feel very, very confident against anybody. Any game, any time, you'd feel really confident that they could get past people. When it comes to, obviously, injuries are a little bit of a problem at the moment for the Packers. They have had some from the back end of last year, and it's still, some of these players are still out. And that's why it kind of feels like what actually happened during the off season sort of feels a little bit strange in a way. I kind of felt like they didn't really have much choice. They were sort of like having to sort of juggle a lot of the, the cap and dealing with the money side of things. Um, but a lot of starters went, I would say. Romeo Dobbs has gone over to the Patriots. Dontavian Wicks has gone to the Eagles. You've lost Jenkins. You've lost Walker, who were both on the O line. These were all, Rashawn Gary has gone as well. These were all starters all the time. And I think that what you're seeing is you're now seeing a roster that has kind of been constructed to do, the whole theory of the Micah Parsons trade was once you get him in, you're playing to win, like to win the Super Bowl. That was the whole theory of it. To me, the whole roster feels like it's very much, it's great, but if there's any injuries, there's not a lot behind it. And I think that kind of really sort of like you start looking at what happened during the off season and you start going, there's a lot of starters gone. There's a lot of the depth has gone compared to what it was, say, like last year. When you think of like our wide receiver room last year, and you had the likes of Reed and Watson and Matthew Golden, but you had Romeo Dobbs, you had Dontavian Wicks as well. They're 5 wide receivers that everyone would have been quite happy having on their team. And now we're down to 3 because 2 of them had to go for whatever reason, because it was time, with Romeo Dobbs, it was time to pay him, so, significantly or not. And I think with Dontavian Wicks, I think it was kind of reaching that point where it's like you're either going to pay him or not. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the shame of the off season. I just kind of feel like they're very, very strong as in their starters, but once you get into the sort of like the depth of the team, it's not as great. Obviously, when it comes to the draft, there's no first round pick there because of the Parsons trade. It kind of puts a bit of a dampener on it. I like Brandon Cisse. I thought he looked good when we did the draft show over at the F Tag. I think that he'll be a good cornerback for them and he'll do well. Deny Dennis Sutton, I know, was a favourite of Andrew's when we were doing the draft show. So that's another one as an edge rusher who was a bit later that we got, which I think would be, quite good for us. Once you get past that, there's not an awful lot to get too excited about when it comes to the draft. So yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think they're in a good spot. I think that they've clearly got themselves a decent team here that can compete, but it does feel like it lacks depth, and that's a little bit of a concern for a team that is supposedly going for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of trade at the time that did put people on alert for the Packers and call them maybe contenders, and I think certainly that was the case when he was healthy. One thing I actually forgot to say was Malik Willis was also one of the outs. Benefited in my team. Obviously, your former coordinator went to us as head coach, and Jeff Hafley. And yeah, obviously now we've got him instead as our starter. And I mentioned Tyrod Taylor; he'll be the guy backing up Jordan Love. Micah Parsons. You mentioned a quote there. You said it was about it's a good team, but if you get any injuries, then it's trouble, and that's kind of what we saw last year. So Micah Parsons, when he was healthy, when he was playing, he'd only lost 4 games. And this was December the 14th when he went down injured. Won 5 of his first 7 games. Really good start. Team were looking like contenders, but then since he left, which is why I've got a bit of hesitation about Jeff Hafley, how the defense will crumble apart when he's gone. They lost every game. Every single game that he wasn't playing Micah Parsons, the team lost. Whether that was the game he got injured in, the Broncos, and then he went on and lost in overtime for the Bears, and then subsequently in the playoffs as well. And then obviously lost heavily to the Ravens in week 17 and lost by think 13 points in week 18, but I can't remember whether you were resting starters at that point. You might be resting your starters. But yeah, Micah Parsons, at the moment, looking at the report on when he's back from injury, this is according to Yahoo Sports, and they're saying that due to a cleanup surgery on his meniscus, the return could take longer than the earliest possible window. But they're predicting, which we talked about it actually in the last show with Paul Redman, our Cowboy season preview, the game he could return in could be that game against his former team at Lambeau. And I was saying to Paul that I can just picture his return game at Lambeau Field. He's the last player to walk out on the field. It's prime time, Sunday night football. And I can just picture the lights going down and him just walking out and some amazing shot. Like we had last year with Justin Herbert in Brazil in week 1. I can just picture some cameraman behind Parsons getting the most incredible shot of him back on the field. But, you know, there's no guarantee it's going to be that early. It could be even later than week 6. Sorry to interrupt you there. I mean, with Parsons, when do you think what day do you think he comes back, and how detrimental do you think it could be to the season if he's out any longer than 6 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to the day that he's back, I mean, it's near impossible, I would have thought, for any of us to actually come up with a day as to when it's going to be. The rumor does seem to be that the Dallas game, I mean, you do wonder, though, if that's just being sort of like put around because it's a nice story and that's what everyone wants it to be. I think realistically, I mean, it's quite clear that he's going to miss the first 4 games. I think that is a fairly obvious thing. And obviously the Dallas game is in week 6. That you do sort of think that kind of makes sense if he's good to go then, that's what it'll be. But yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to Micah Parsons, I mean, when you actually look at it, the defense was that the amount of points that they conceded was a touchdown less every single game that he was out in the field. That's kind of what it averaged out as last year. So it just goes to show how big a presence he is and how good he is and the difference that he makes. Because, like, in the nicest possible way, Rashawn Gary was kind of like an edge rusher who I don't think many Packers fans were that upset to see him go. I think it was like, you know, he'd been there a while and they kind of like, they liked him and they supported him and stuff like that. But I don't think they were incredibly upset. His numbers just were never really that great. But when Parsons was opposite him, just for that at the beginning of that season, his numbers flew up. And anyone, you know, Lucas Van Ness, all of a sudden you've got an edge rusher in Van Ness who looked really, really good. And a lot of that is because Micah Parsons was there and he was just sort of like taking away 2 guys every single time. So I think he's obviously a massive player for the Packers now. He's someone that they desperately need to get back as soon as possible. At the same time, there's no point rushing him. Like, if you rush him and he ends up re-injuring himself, what's the point in that? So I think the Dallas game does seem to be the one that is being muted around in the rumors and all that, and that would be great. And like you say, it would be amazing to see that. And you can imagine that kind of, you know, the way the NFL does it, and they have, you know, all the cameras on him and all the sort of spectacle of him coming back and it being Lambeau and Sunday Night Football and everything you said. It's everything that they would want it to be. So you can kind of imagine that happening and it just working out in that way, because that's the funny thing with the NFL. It does, a lot of these things do just tend to work out like that, and it just seems to happen, and it's not necessarily programmed. It's just that, you know, they happen to be fit at that time. And so I think that would be a good one that we would all like to see. But yeah, I mean, he is clearly a massive player for the Packers, and it kind of feels like with the season as a whole, it's going to be about trying to maintain themselves in a position where they're not too far away. And then when he comes back, that's when they'll probably win a lot more games.
Yeah, I think for that kind of, you know, first, 5-6 weeks where he isn't playing, or maybe 7-8 weeks, depending on whether it's later or earlier, if you can go into that game he returns on a, I don't know, 5-2 record or 4-2 or 6-1, if you can go into that point where he's back in the season and you've got a good record, you've got a good chance of making the playoffs. But I think how we saw last year, what happened when you didn't have him, if that happens again and you kind of start the same season the way you ended the last season and you start, I don't know, 2-4, 1-5, 3-6, that can be an almighty task to get back into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is one of them things where if you sort of take a look at it, they have got some games at the very beginning that are not too bad. So you kind of think to yourself, oh, okay, you probably could get yourself, say, like 2 or 3 wins out of them first 6 games without him. So it kind of does make you feel a little bit like, they could be in a position where it's not the end of the world. But I do feel like what you're, and if you do sort of think if that is the case, if they're in a position where they're kind of like, 3-3 after 6 weeks or 4-4 after 8 weeks, there's no need to rush him back to a certain extent, because if he can play them sort of like last 8 weeks of the season, then that really does sort of like, he is that much of an impactful player for you that it really can turn a game just by having him out there. So it's like that. I think they kind of need to think of it in that way a little bit. So it is important, and obviously he does need to take time, because the last thing you want to do is rush him back and re-injure him and stuff like that. So that's the last thing they need. But yeah, I mean, it's, as for when it's going to be, who knows, kind of thing. Let's hope it is the Dallas game. It would be it would be fun if it was.
Absolutely, and that could actually be the same day we meet for the first time in person at the London games. That'll be post Eagles Jags, and that will be. I'll be going back at that point. I'll be heading back home, but I'm sure I can see you and Freddie staying out to watch that. In the bars or in one of your houses. I can see that being, certainly a game you're looking forward to after the London game, and the final one of the year. Now, I want to ask you about your head coach, Matt LaFleur. Got a lot of stick following the end of the season against the Bears. I mean, you had 2 games against the Bears at Soldier Field where you allowed big leads to slip. I mean, in the Week 16 game, you were at one point you were, I think, 13-6 up, which isn't the biggest score in the world, I suppose. But that was in the 4th quarter, and you allowed it to go to overtime. The Bears won it there. But the one that everyone likes to talk about is that wildcard round loss. 18-point deficit was lost in this game. I mean, at the start of the 3rd quarter, you were 21-3 up. You even got to be 21-9 up at the start of the 4th quarter, and then you ended up losing 31-27. I mean, it was a damaging loss, and the floor's taken a lot of the heat, much more than Jordan Love has. And there's kind of been the feeling I found amongst social media, and Packers fans have been talking about it, how maybe he's taken the team as far as he can, whether he's the guy that can get them to that next level has been discussed quite a lot by Packers fans, by non-Packers fans. Where do you see it? Are you confident in the floor? I mean, you can't argue with, since being there, he's brought them stability. I mean, he reached 2 conference championships. He's won multiple divisions. I don't think he's had many losing seasons, or if any, or even any single-digit win seasons. He's brought you guys a lot of success with Rodgers and without Rodgers. Where do you stand on the floor at the moment?
Yeah, I think that the reaction to last year, I can understand. I think it was kind of overblown a little bit, but I can kind of understand where it came from, because it was the Bears. I think that was the reason that it really sort of like kind of that instant reaction from a lot of Packers fans, where it's like, right, we need to get rid of him, that's it. And I do feel like that's partly because of who it was against rather than what happened. Obviously, it was a concern that happened, that you could go and have such a strong lead with just a quarter left and then it all end up sort of falling away. I don't really. First of all, the one thing I would say, I don't really blame Jordan Love for any of it. I think that Jordan Love played quite a decent game. He maybe didn't perform amazingly in the fourth quarter, but at the same time, that team put up 27 points. I mean, that should realistically be enough to get you through a game against a team. So if you're a playoff team and you're expecting to go far, 27 points should be enough to get that win. So I don't really feel like it's necessarily Jordan Love that's the issue. I actually don't really feel like it was necessarily Matt LaFleur either, because he wasn't calling the plays on the defense. That's the thing that I think that people just don't like to remember. It's almost like they just go, "Oh, he's the head coach; it's his fault." But in reality, it's like, Jeff Hafley was calling the plays for the defense, and it kind of just felt like the whole thing snowballed. That was kind of what it was. It's almost like the momentum just went away from them in that fourth quarter, and that was the end of it. And they never really got it back. So yeah, I feel like I don't mind LaFleur. I think he's fine. I feel like people who come out and say that they should get rid of him and he's taken them as far as he can, that may be the case. But who are you getting in that's going to be any better? That's the argument that I always sort of like go for. And I just kind of feel like more often than not, they don't exist. And he's clearly a very talented coach. He clearly knows what he's doing because, like you say, he's never had a losing record, does really well. Got all these with Rodgers, without Rodgers. They've almost sort of like he's been part of the whole sort of like process with Jordan Love and bringing him in so early, and then obviously like the length of time it took for him to become the starter, and then now he has been the starter for a while. And I just kind of feel like to throw all that away now just doesn't really add up. It doesn't make a great deal of sense, and it just sort of feels like keeping him's the way forward. I would argue more on the fact that the roster is not being built necessarily in the greatest way. That's Brian Gutekunst, that's the GM. That's it. That's a different thing, and that to a certain extent, it's like I said earlier, there's a lot of really good starters there, but if you get any injuries, there's nothing behind them. It's like that's where the real concern comes in, and you just sort of think, well, that's not LaFleur's fault, So it's. I think it's harsh to want to get rid of him. I don't think there's anyone much better to bring in, and I think that just taking him away from Jordan Love, I think you're going to end up creating more problems than what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Yeah. I mean, looking at his specific record right now, I mean, he's had one losing season, that was in 2022. The one season I bet on them to win the division, might I add as well. But, 76, 40-1 is his record. 13-3 the first 2 years, 13-4 in 2021. Obviously, I mentioned 89, but then 9-8, 11-6, and last year they got 9-7-1. So, and all those seasons, bar 2022, they made the playoffs. So, yeah I think, whilst I do think sometimes the coach, a bit like McDermott and Harbaugh, can only go a certain way with the team, but also it's very rare you can get someone who's going to come in and you're not going to get Sean McVay's just next year. It's very hard to find guys like that, and I think obviously there's Steelers fans will be saying will be chucking their phones at the TV saying what about Tomlin? He had constant consistency, and look what we got. But I think the fact he's had so many playoff seasons, so many winning seasons with well over double digit, I personally feel like he's not done anything yet for me that would warrant firing him unless they can get a Sean McVay. I think that's the only way you can do it if you can get someone better. But I don't think, I don't think that's possible. Let's head to our final segment, which is win, lose or tie. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with this segment of the show, each fan that comes on will predict their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with the simple answer of win, lose, or tie. Now, Adam, you came on last year, and I said before the Packers finished 9-7-1 last season. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was 12 months ago?
Not a clue. You can't ask me that like I'm going to remember.
So you actually predicted, 9-8. So you had the same wins predicted, just not a tie. So that's very rare you see that when someone gets the same amount of wins and doesn't get these predictions right. So fair play to you. But week 1, you're starting off on the road, which brings back some painful memories of that 2022 season in week 1 on the road to the Vikings.
I think we win it. I'm not overly sold on the Vikings this year. I think that they're going to struggle and probably be near the bottom of our division. So I think we start off with a win in the first.
Okay, so then week 2, you are on the road once again, but this time to the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I have to put a win for that, don't I?
Guaranteed W, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Jets, I think that they're still struggling. They've been rebuilding for about 25 years, haven't they? So, I mean, I feel like they're still going down that route. We'll have a win.
You might generally have 2 to 3 worst teams in the whole league in that division.
This is what I was saying about a good early start.
Oh my God, it doesn't get any harder, any easier in week 3. Well, it doesn't get any harder in week 3. Home to the Falcons.
Yeah, I think at home to the Falcons, I think will be a win because of that. I feel like the Falcons are an interesting team where I think they've got some things on offense, although they've already had a couple of bad injuries. They've already lost Jalen Walker, so I think offensively they might be quite good, but defensively I'm not overly sold on them. So I think we win that one.
And it could be at this point still Cooper Rush for the Falcons. If Penix and Tua are still injured, they've signed Cooper Rush as an emergency kind of signing. It could be him, which makes prospects of winning even greater. Week 4, you're on the road, but this time to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, not great history away to the Bucs. I have to say we don't normally do particularly well there, and I think that it'll probably be our first loss this one. I think going away to Tampa, I think it'll be tough. Baker Mayfield definitely has a point to prove, and they're just because they haven't got Mike Evans there anymore. They're still going to be a good offense. I think they get the Vita Vea thing done, and I think that'd be good. So loss on that one.
So week 5, it is the first of 2 games against your fiercest rival. You are hosting the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears. Again, they're going to be a good team. Lots on the offense. I think they're going to not be quite as good as what they were last year, though. I think that the defense isn't great, and I think that they've got a much tougher schedule this year. So I think they'll struggle a bit more. As we're at home, I think we win it, but I think it'll be close. So win for us.
Well, week 6 is that game we've mentioned in this show. At home to the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys again. I think will be better than what some people are thinking. I think that they're a decent team, the Cowboys, and but they still have gaps on that defense. It's still not the same as what it was. I fancy us to. I think we nick it. So 5-1, which is actually quite a bit more than what I thought we were going to be.
Yeah, it's some start.
Can I change the Chicago one?
If you want, yeah.
I think we'll change the Chicago one to a loss and the Dallas one to a win. 4-2. I feel better with that.
Fair enough. For week 7 is a game on the road to the Lions.
Yeah, we won't win that. I think the Lions are going to be very good this year. They can't keep getting as many injuries as they have done on that defense. The offense looks strong. Like the look of them. I think we lose that one.
I agree. I don't think they're getting talked about anywhere near as much as they should be.
Yeah.
After one down year, everyone forgets just how good they've got, how good players they've got. Week 8 is a game, I believe, is on Thursday Night Football. You are hosting the Panthers.
Yeah, home to the Panthers. I think we win that. I think that the Panthers, although the Panthers improved quite a lot last year, I think there is a limit to what they can do offensively. And I think that the defense has actually lost a couple of pieces over the offseason, so I think they might struggle a little bit more. But yeah, I think we win that one.
Well, week 9 is a game involving last year's AFC champions as you take a trip to the New England Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots offense, I think Drake May takes another step forward. I think that the Patriots are a good team that are going to do well again. Obviously a tougher schedule for them, but they'll still do well, I think. Away to them, I think will be very tough. So I think a loss for that one.
Well, week 10, you are facing your second game of the season against the Vikings, but this time you're at home.
Right, I'm going. So my thought process of this is that I now week 10, Parsons is back. That's my kind of logic behind it. The Vikings are not going to be anything spectacular. Kyler Murray will probably be broken by now. JJ McCarthy won't be able to do anything anyway. Probably against, I don't know, who else they got there? They still got Carson Wentz. Is he still there? I think so.
I hope not.
So yeah, I think we win. I think we win that one. I think that'll be fine.
To be fair, I will say, I have this feeling, right? Or at least it should be considered for this, right? If Kyle Murray's struggling or he's injured, and they have no faith in McCarthy or Alfie and Wentz, one person who's been making the news could be out of the team, could be enticed by Jefferson and Addison. Could be there? Could they do a little mid-season trade if he doesn't want to sign the deal? They want to get something back from him at least. You never know. I could see him being a trade deadline candidate, and I did an article actually for the touchdown where I talked about kind of ideal landing spots, and one of them is the Vikings. So at that point, you never know. I don't think it'll happen. I think it'll just be more of a free agency thing. But you never know. They could trade him away, and it could be for the Vikings.
You never know. It could happen.
Probably not, but you never know. You never
Probably
know.
not.
Well, week 11 is a bye week, so week 12 you are taking on the road the LA Rams.
Yeah, I think the Rams are going to be near impossible for anyone to beat this year. To be honest, I think they've got everything that you possibly need from an NFL team. So I think we lose that one.
Yeah, I mean, I said it loads on this show, the season previews. I said it before even, before they even made the trade for Garrett. They were my favourites to win it all. And when we do our predictions episode later on in the off season, it'll be no shock to anyone. I will be picking the Rams to win the Super Bowl, or at least win the NFC, unless something happens in the next month regarding an injury in training camp. I will say the one thing I will say is, everyone's talking about Garrett, fair enough, but there's no guarantee that Donald will come back the same player. He's been out of the game 2 years. He's 2 years older. There's no guarantee he's going to come back and be the same Donald we saw before. Probably will. He probably will just go in and ball out, and even if he goes on a limited snap count. But I just think personally, it's hard to see him not performing well. But also, there is that little thing of me thinking, he is mid-30s. There's no guarantee he's going to come back and be the same player.
No, that is true, but I do feel like, so when I sort of talk about the Rams, I haven't really sort of been thinking of it as though he's actually going to be playing. So, I mean, when you think about that defensive line, that was a really good, strong D-line that they had before they did the Garrett trade anyway. And realistically, all they've done is they've just swapped Jared Verse for Garrett. So it's like, it's really what they've done is they've just improved their sort of pass rush is what they've done. But the D-line is still going to be very strong. Even without Aaron Donald, Then, of course, you've added Trent McDuffie, isn't it? They've added as a corner. So I think that was the problem for them, really. It was the corner position. That's kind of been locked down now that they've got him out there. And you just sort of think to yourself, there's no real weaknesses on that defense now. So if Aaron Donald comes in and doesn't really do much, I don't think it really makes much of a difference for them. And if he's good, if he's still great, happy days for them, kind of thing. It's like it doesn't really, it's only a bonus. So I kind of look at it as though it's only a positive for the Rams if he does come back. And then obviously the offense was great last year, and I think it will do the same again this year. Although I do feel like, anyone who owns Puka or Devontae Adams in fantasy, I'm not quite sure that you're going to get as many points from them as what you did last year, because with that defense, do you think they're going to need to score as many points all the time? I don't know.
It's tough. I just think, Stafford's a year older, the whole age thing, but I just, like you, I don't see many weaknesses. I don't see. No. I think our Rams fan Sam Andrews said the linebacker was his one area of concern, but apart from that, special teams was another one of his. But I'm looking at this team. You've got the reigning MVP. You've got Kieran Williams. You've got Nakua and Adams. You've got that defense, which you could have. It's going to be, if you, like we all think he's going to be there, the best ever defensive player of this century, alongside the current best player in the league on defense. So, and that's just on one unit as well. That's going to be, that D line's going to be frightening. It really is. Week 13, though, you're heading still on the road, but this time to the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, the Saints are a sneaky good team this year, I think. They've got potential to do something. So I think they're not going to be as easy to beat as what a lot of people think they are. However, I do feel like if we're at that point, we have managed to sort of like not get everyone injured, but like with Parsons back, I think we'll become a really good defense as well. And so I like us to win that game. I think that I think indoors at the Saints, I think that we'll do okay there and we'll win that.
So then week 14, your first of two back-to-back home games, and both are AFC East related. Your first one is Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, now, I mean, Buffalo's still a really good team. Feel like they might actually improve a little bit offensively this year now that Sean McDermott's gone and Joe Brady's taken over. So I think that they've got something that they might actually be a little bit better than what they were. And they were good last year still, but I feel like they've got a bit more of a chance of going all the way this time. So yeah, I think that'll be tough. I know it's at home, but the cold's not going to bother Buffalo, is it? So I think that there's no real sort of difference there when it comes to it. So yeah, I like Buffalo to win it. So I think that we'll probably lose that one.
Well, week 15, be careful of your answer here. I have got the mute button ready. You're home to the Dolphins.
Now, there is this rumour that goes around that the Dolphins don't like the cold. And on the 20th of December, it's pretty cold off in Lambeau. So I think this is, surely you don't want to win this one, do you? By this point, you're looking for the future, aren't you? And is this not the ethical tank that you're currently having? So
yeah.
I think we'll win, but I think in a way the Dolphins might be quite happy. So
yeah, we had Dolphins episode a few episodes ago, and we did have what we've got right now at time of recording, our lowest win total of any fan so far in win-loss or tie this series, with just 4 wins between me, Mark and Sam. So not much confidence amongst us three. And I will say, if it gets to week 15 and we've got just 2 or 3 wins all year, and I think the thing is, I can see Malik Willis falling out as still not having great amount of wins, because I just think that secondary is just horrendous. Like there's one point where we got Jamar Chase up against potentially Storm Duck, and that frightens me so much. So it's one where, I think at this point you want to win games. And I will say, if you can go a season with 3 wins. Getting a win on the final few weeks of the year against a good team always feels good. I don't think he'll come against this, but I will say I think it was more Tua in the cold, not the Dolphins. And Malik Willis knows full well how to play in the cold. So I think that will be an issue for him. But then, of course, there is obviously other players on the team as well as Malik. But, I think I'm confident in I think we could be a team where we score 25 points potentially and let in 40 every game. Because I think you've got A-Chain and Malik Willis and 3 receivers who aren't anything special, but they could do something. I think A-Chain could run the show. Malik Willis could get a few rushing touchdowns. This team could score 30 points in half our games. But I just don't see our defense allowing, apart from Trot Robinson will be good, but there's not many players in this defense that I have confidence can stop some of the players we're playing against this year, and certainly one of them would be Jamar Chase. And yeah, I'd have no confidence. And we always do struggle at Lambeau, so it's not something we really want at too many. I've never seen us win at Lambeau. So, fingers crossed we don't. we don't.
Keep the run going.
Well, Week 16 is your final road game of the season. The game I'm looking forward to, one of the most out of any game this season. It's my favourite game of the whole season. Bears, Packers, at Soldier Field. Christmas Day, 12 p.m. in the US, 5 p.m. in the UK. Boy, that is some exciting game.
Yeah, it will be. Like you say, at Soldier Field, I think that'll be very tough for us to get anything out of it. Like Christmas Day as well. I think the atmosphere is going to be amazing there. So yeah, I'd be very surprised if we got anything there. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to go for a loss on that one.
Well, your penultimate game is against the Houston Texans.
Yeah, so the Texans at home, I like us to beat the Texans at home. I think that their defense is very good. Our defense is very good though as well, and I just think that our offense is stronger. So I feel like we'll probably just get over the line against them and just do enough against them. So yeah, I win for that one.
So that means your final game is at home to the Lions. Adam, for the final time this episode, win, lose or tie?
Yeah, this is a tough one because you kind of feel like this might be a point where the Lions are already qualified and in the playoffs and done pretty well. So they might be resting starters. I think given that it's the final one, I think we will probably need to win this to get us a decent win total. Them maybe not so much because I think they'll have had a good season. So yeah, I'll go win just because it's in Lambeau and I think that we've got a solid chance. But that's another one. It's gonna be a tough one. It'd be really tight, I think, that one.
Well, that means, according to your predictions, you will end the season with a 10-7 record.
Yeah, I think so. For me, when we were doing our preview for the NFC North, I didn't do the schedule like this, but I kind of had us down as sort of 9 or 10 again. And I think that kind of makes quite a lot of sense for us at the moment where we are, the fact that we are missing Parsons for a decent chunk of time at the beginning of the season. And I think that 10-7 it'll give you a good chance of getting into the playoffs, but I think it will be as like a wild card spot. It won't be anything like, that high enough where we win the division with that. I think that the Lions will probably get much more than that. And actually the Bears as well could easily do 10-7 or maybe 11, So I think it'll be enough in an NFC where I kind of feel like it could end up going between us and the 49ers for like the 7th spot.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, there we are. That is the end of the show and the end of our Green Bay Packers season preview. So, Adam, first of all, a huge thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, no, great. Always good to come on, do the preview. Hopefully we have a better season than what I thought of. So,
well, yeah, I NFC North is always a really good division for me. I love everything about it. So I'm looking forward to seeing who wins it this year. as a very much a neutral, although probably rooting for the Bears more than anyone else because they are my team I'd pick if the Dolphins folded. So, always have faith. Always want the Bears to win over any other team. But I love Lambeau Field. I love the history of the Packers, the history of, the Lions and their underdog status. You've got the Vikings and the Skull Chant. And it's a great division, and I love it. And I love every single game that involves particularly the Bears and Packers. But there we are. That is the end of the show and the end of this season preview. I have been, as ever, your host today in Andy Davis and our guest in Packers fan Adam Martin from the Franchise Tag Podcast, and we will put a link in the description to the Franchise Tag Podcast. And we'll see you guys for our next team season preview. See you there.